So I thought since we're all home and got nothing better to do, just kidding, some of us are working from home, that it would be a really good time to go over some arm balances. So today's little tutorial is going to be about crow, which is kakasana. You might hear bakasana a lot in class, and those are sometimes used interchangeably, but they're not the same thing, right? Bakasana is crane pose, it's got straight arms. Kakasana is crow pose. That's the one you'll see most often in a studio yoga class that isn't particularly advanced. So this is going to be a beginner video. And yeah, if you haven't already warmed up a little, maybe pause this, do some sun salutations. If you haven't already given your wrists a little bit love, particularly if you don't spend a whole lot of time on your wrists, make sure you're rolling them out, and you can sort of shake them out. You can send one palm away from you, gently pull it back, and then flip it over, and do the same thing, right? Flip it over. And then we'll talk about the arm balances. So when you're first coming into crow, and by the way, it looks a little something like this, right? You look forward, you lean forward, pick up your heels, my arms are slightly bent, my gaze is forward, and my heels are up into my hips. But that can feel like, a long journey when you're first starting on that road. So you've got a couple of tools, right? So there's some foundational cues that can help you. And one of them is that when your hands are shoulder width distance apart, I often see students line their hands up close together. And I wonder why. Because just like you wouldn't want a tiny foundation of your house and then the rest of it to grow out. You also don't want it to be wider than your shoulders and that goes for handstand and most of your arm balances as well, because that starts to put a lot of load right there on that bicep tendon. So you want your hands like right underneath your shoulders, okay? And then we're gonna do this movement that we do for all of our arm, anytime your hands, in fact, not just arm balances, even in down dog, even in plank, where you're gonna wrap the soft part of your elbows forward, right? So you're wrapping, oftentimes you'll hear it cued as wrapping your triceps in, doing this movement here. And what this is doing is this is gonna give some integrity to that shoulder joint. It's gonna activate your latissimus dorsi, that nice big muscle in your back. And it's gonna give you not just a solid foundation, but a really safe foundation, right? Which is the most important thing. Now there are several options for your placement of your knees, whether you have them all the way up into your armpits, right? Some people like to lay their shins right on the back of their legs because it's got a lot of real estate there. For sure, when you start to get a little bit more advanced, it can be helpful to find that little sweet spot down next to your elbows so that you can start lifting one leg and then the other and finding your Ekapada, your one-footed crow, but that's for a different, I promise I'll do a video on that, but just not today. But if you're brand new and you have a block or a book, it can be really helpful, just like most arm balances. It's those first few inches to get your feet off of the ground that are the hardest. So if you do the work, you let the block do that work, you're sort of halfway there already. And then plant your hands shoulder width distance apart, split your knees, pick up your booty. Really important, you're gonna wrap those triceps in, start to bend your elbows back, give yourself a little bit of a shelf, look forward, lean forward. Maybe you just pick up one foot, then the other, maybe both. Lay it back down, and you just did crow. Now, if you're afraid of face planting, and who isn't, grab a pillow. I don't love to use a block, and you'll see that in yoga studios a lot where somebody will put a block right in front of their face. And what happens with that, and the reason I don't like to use it, is because blocks are hard. And if you were to face plant, like I've got a pretty solid crow, and I'm still getting pretty nervous here with my face getting closer and closer to a block. Of course, your natural reaction then is going to be to tuck your chin so that you don't break your nose right on a block. And when you tuck your chin, you start initiating what your body thinks is going to be a somersault. So you want to keep that gaze forward. You want to keep those triceps wrapping in. It can be super helpful. Like I said, there's a couple of different leg positions. The one I like the most for beginner yogis is going to be to split my knees, right? Split your knees. Lift up your booty. Bend your elbows back and place those knees right into the outside, if you can get them up there, of your armpits, so that when you start to look forward and lean forward, you squeeze everything into the center. And it's super solid. There's not just a lift, but there's also a squeezing in. Try it. So, yeah, if you have any questions, comment, or if you know me personally, DM me, and yeah, happy flying.